Arvin, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. Of course I'm on mute.
Take two, start over, take it from the top.
Rewind. Yo, what is up, everybody? How are you doing, Michelle?
I'm fabulous. It's great to see you, Arvin.
Same. Welcome, everybody, to Unscripted Intelligence. This is a podcast where we talk about artificial intelligence, human intelligence, how they intersect, and how they impact everything from education to the workforce.
On this podcast, we interview thought leaders and change makers who are making waves and shaking things up. These are live conversations that are uncharted and unfiltered as we create space for all the things that isn't being discussed. And always, these conversations are unavoidable.
One day we're going to get that together at the same time. Thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast.
I'm Dr. Michelle Ament, the co-president of the Human Intelligence Movement and chief academic officer for ProSolve. The Human Intelligence Movement is a grassroots nonprofit that is dedicated to ensuring that we have the human skills that are essential to succeed and thrive in our AI world.
And my name is Arvin Ross, your other co-host, and I'm the immersive learning designer and facilitator for the Human Intelligence Movement, as well as the co-founder of ProSolve. Michelle, what are we getting into today?
I am so excited for this special series because the Human Intelligence Movement is deeply committed to supporting school districts and workplaces in making sure that we have these uniquely human skills, not only making sure that students have them, but defining them and thinking about how do we measure them and how do we hold ourselves accountable to ensuring that as students graduate from a K-12 school district, that they are prepared to succeed in our AI world. One of the things that school districts across the nation and specifically in California do is they have something called the Portrait of a Learner or Portrait of a Graduate. And this really is their North Star, their focus of what do they believe as an organization that students need. And these are the skills and the competencies and the mindsets that they are committed to each and every day in the work that they do. And so this series is really illuminating some of the work that is happening in school districts across California. And we are going to be talking to lots of leaders who are making waves and shaking things up.
So I'm super stoked because we are in it. You guys know we are big on community. We are big on sharing and kind of cross-pollinating. We have such an amazing community of very impactful individuals in different sectors and verticals. Our goal and our honor is to share with you what those types of people are doing in their spaces in hopes that cross-pollination can happen into your space. So Michelle, do you want to go ahead and bring them on and let's have them introduce themselves?
Absolutely. We have some guests today from Sierra Sands Unified School District. Dr. Michelle Savko and Dr. April Moore are joining us today to really share what's happening in Sierra Sands. And also Roman Stearns is joining us. He's the Executive Director of Scaling Student Success, an organization that supports California districts in this pursuit to really identify what are these uniquely human skills that students need in order to thrive and succeed. So welcome. Let's have you do some introductions. Tell us a little bit about you, your role, and what it is that your district is doing. So I'll start with you, Dr. April Moore.
Hello, Michelle and Arvin. Great to meet you and to have this conversation. I am the superintendent in the wonderful Sierra Sands Unified School District. We're a K-12 district in East Kern. So we're 2 hours east of Bakersfield on the east side of the Sierra Nevadas. And we're very remote, rural, but we have a fantastic community. We serve the Naval Air Weapons Station, China Lake. So we have a great military base, wonderful, stable community with a lot of scientists and research and development folks. As well as just a lot of other folks that find it affordable and a great place to live. And so we'll dive into the work here shortly, but that's a little bit about us.
I love it. What about you, Dr. Savko? Can you introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and join this conversation. My role in the district is Deputy Superintendent. of Education Services. And so I have worked alongside Dr. Moore to honor the communities and students' reflections about what's important to our community in terms of the competencies needed to be successful in a very unique world.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Roman?
Good morning. I'm Roman Stearns. I'm the founder and executive director of Scaling Student Success. We're a California partnership. We have built a community among the dozens of school districts across California, like Sierra Sands, that have a portrait of a graduate or graduate profile and are on the path to move it from poster to practice, fully operationalize it in a way that it serves as a promise to their students and families and community. And it's exciting to be in this space with all of you.
I love it. Thank you all so much. So Michelle, I don't know if you have some questions, but I've got one that I feel like would be good to just kind of set us off. Is that cool if I hop in?
Yep, let's go.
Okay. So can the three of you just share from your perspective? You're talking to someone, a leader or a parent who has no concept of what a portrait of a graduate is, or the reason or the purpose behind it, the heart behind it, the goal. Can you share just from your perspective and your experience, what is it? What are we talking about? Why is it important? Anybody?
Yeah,
I'll jump in. We've been doing this conversation for 2 years, and I learned from Roman, so I'll let him correct and add to it. But about 2 years ago, we called Roman up, we got connected, said, okay, we want to do this work. What does it mean? And our elevator pitch, if you will, is what do we as a community want our students to know and be able to do upon graduation? And if we can identify that as a community and lock those in, then we can intentionally teach and design the learning so that every graduate graduates with those same competencies, capacities, whatever the term is. So we call ours Portrait of a Graduate, but we don't see it as a high school initiative only. This is a K-12 initiative. How are we teaching and training our students to be these wonderful humans alongside all the academic learning that of course we're doing, but that human component that we're talking about today. And we have this community ownership of what that is. But it's what do we want our graduates to know and be able to do upon graduation? Okay, Roman, what would you add?
Yeah, and then, well, to answer that question, not only Sierra Sands, but in every community across the state that's done this work, that's 100+ communities. None of them have said, we want our kids to score higher on standardized tests or improve their attendance rates or decrease the suspensions or even increase graduation rates. That's not what they've said. They said, we need our young people to be self-directed lifelong learners, culturally competent and globally aware citizens, effective communicators and collaborators, critical and creative thinkers, financially and digitally literate, adaptable, resilient, kind, curious, socially responsible. Like the list goes on, but every school district has a list that looks something like that or a subset of. And, you know, that's what young people want. That's what their parents want, families want, their community wants, employers want. Like there's no disagreement at all. And our education system has paid lip service to some of those things, but has never held themselves accountable. And what we're all about as a community is let's hold ourselves accountable for what young people really need. We don't want the state to hold us accountable. That's just another compliance measure, but we need to locally hold ourselves accountable for what young people need to help them succeed.
Roman, something you said is really resonating with me, and that is that holding ourselves accountable. As a human intelligence movement, we talk a lot about the need accountability measures exist all over, and what we're not doing is holding ourselves accountable to that whole child approach to these human skills. And Dr. Moore, I really have valued how you talked about the human at the center of the work that your community identified. And so it's so great to be alongside all of you in this work, because there's so much synergy in what the human intelligence movement is working to do, which again comes back to holding ourselves accountable to making sure that young people have the skills they need.
Yeah, I love that, and I'm so glad that you said the accountability piece, because the thing that really stuck out to me is that we've paid lip service to some of these things in the past, and certainly in my vertical of professional development training for for K-12 staff, I have seen that over and over, and I've been brought in to be a part of that message and to share that message of lip service, but not necessarily be able to actually follow through on that. So another question, right? You're kind of painting a picture of this is what the end in mind is, right? When students leave our care, the end in mind is that they're able to demonstrate proficiency in all of these things, right? How did you derive or come to the conclusion that these are the important things that need to be that end in mind? I
Well,
heard
and I want to build on that, Arvin. Not only how did you get there, but what are they in Sierra Sands? Like, what does your community hold as the essentials? And let's hear from Dr. Savko.
Yeah.
Thank you. So to your point, we started with the end in mind. You know, what community are we serving, and who are we serving? So again, the human at the center. So Dr. Moore actually led the work in holding student and community and staff forums, um, engaging all community members in this work, right? So the question is simple, but the answer is more complex, right? So what is it that the humans in our system, what attributes, what competencies must they have to be a successful human in this world, right? And so that was the work. And then out of all of those many voices, we ironically, I think, used AI to help synthesize those attributes. But then circling back to the human, we then refined those competencies together in various groups like leadership groups, teacher groups, which we call our Senate, and also with our students. And so those attributes are at this time a communicator, a collaborator, an innovative problem solver, a community contributor with that ethics lens, and that self-directed navigator.
I know you're going to love these, Arvin, and
I
especially that innovative problem solver, because we talk a lot about adaptability and the need to be resilient and flexible, and that is all problem solving. And would you tell us more about some of these? Like, how do you define them?
Yeah.
You talk about a communicator, a collaborator, innovative problem solver, et cetera. Like, tell us, what does that look like and feel like and sound like?
Well, we're navigating that right now, and
again,
that's where we're working.
I love it. You both jumped in. Go for it.
Go ahead, Dr. Moore.
Okay. All right. Well, we're working on that now, as she said, and we're working with scaling student success in their communities of practice. They have different strands of depending on what we're working on. In our portrait of a graduate, we're working on that quantifying and holding ourselves accountable and building a scorecard of data, but at its base level. So we started with a baseline this year, working with our administrators, our school principals and assistant principals, so that when we're walking classrooms, we're gathering baseline data. How often are we seeing these elements? And what does that look like? And we're building our collective capacity so that as we roll out our learner progressions and help infuse this intentionally in the curriculum with our teachers, we'll be able to see the growth. Because I'll tell you right now, right out the gate, we're doing fairly well with communicator, somewhat well with collaborator, but the other three are very low. So we know it's that intentionality, it's that infusing with purpose and the follow-up classroom visits that will make all the difference. And so we're kind of excited that we're building a baseline data so we can show that growth of intentionality and practice over time. But that's where we're at in the stage right now. And Michelle is leading the team that works in that community of practice to understand and see what everybody else is doing and learn from that, and then apply it to our community and our culture. And so, Dr. Savko, what would you add to that?
I would add that how we begin the work of operationalizing is, as Dr. Moore shared, we're observing in the classroom and we're refining what does that look like, sound like, feel like what is that at the human center? So we know that these competencies don't just emerge in high school, right? So we have defined these competencies, like what it should actually look like across the grade levels. So we have emerging, which is transitional, kindergarten through second grade, then developing, third grade through sixth grade, advancing seventh and eighth grades, and then mastering 9 through 12. And to Dr. Moore's point, I think we have a lot of structure and support around communicator, collaborator, but we are in the messy middle, if you will, with innovative problem solver and community contributor and self-directed navigator. There are elements, but we need to hold ourselves accountable across the system to operationalize that work.
Wow, this is really impressive, and especially the continued focus on measuring what matters and holding yourself accountable to this portrait of a graduate. Oftentimes we hear the sentiment that it's just a poster on the wall and that it is hard to, and that we aren't seeing it operationalized, where I really see you working to take it from poster to practice. And what, as someone who has led this type of work myself, I know how challenging it is to really move a system forward with learner progressions and classroom visits and all of the things you're doing. And so I'm really curious, what are some of the leadership moves that you've really employed to make that happen? Like, what can people learn from you in the way in which you've been successful in bringing some of this organizational change forward?
That's a great question. And I think we're still developing that because, as we mentioned, we're not yet full implementation, right? So we're still in that messy middle. But one of the leadership moves that we have made is to keep it at the forefront at the cabinet and board level. So earlier this fall, our school board was certifying and kind of drafting their board objectives to really help us align and unify our work. And they came up with 3 great objectives: engage students, staff, and community. But as we were putting the visual together, and Michelle's a graphic design background that is a great hidden talent of hers, but we're putting this visual together of like 3 concentric circles, not concentric, just overlapping, like a 3-part Venn diagram. But at the center, we talked with the board and we said, we need our portrait graduate to be at the center. And we had a great conversation about what does that mean? Because everything we're doing is leading towards that. And so the visual that we have, and we can share, it's on our website, we start every board meeting with it. We have great visuals of it now throughout our system. We have the objectives, we have the portrait graduate, and then the ring around the whole image are the 5 competencies that we're striving for. So to keep that front and center, to keep that the focus, to keep it part of our conversation, so that it doesn't become just that poster on the wall.
Yeah, it sounds like it's your North Star for sure as a cabinet team. But I think what I just want to lift up is how you've brought your board along as well, because when we talk about measuring what matters and holding ourselves accountable to it, that idea of the school board also being involved with making sure that they are holding themselves and the system accountable is, I think, key to the work and the leadership you're doing. Roman, go ahead. I know you were going to contribute some ideas there.
Well, first I want to say that it's the rare kind of bold and visionary leader like Dr. Moore and Dr. Savko that moved this work forward. There is absolutely nothing at the state level in terms of compliance that is obligating them to do this work, right? The state board, the State Department of Education, the governor's office, the legislature, like none of them have in any way indicated support for this work or been leaders or elevated it. Until now, the State Board of Education is actually moving through a process to create a portrait of a learner for the state board, not to impose on school districts, but rather as a policy framework to inform their own decision-making moving forward. So that's exciting. And that puts wind beneath the wings of the school districts like Sierra Sands that are doing this work. But it's, if most superintendents are very compliance focused, they're doing what they need to do and they don't really have bandwidth to do a whole lot more, and not to say they don't have the ideas and want to do more, but it's hard, especially as a new superintendent, to stretch your neck out, because when you stretch your neck out, it's a little bit easier to chop it off, and boards will do that sometimes. And we see that way too often. And so the leadership moves that are critical, one is just being bold and being out there and willing to take a chance and take a risk and do things that are best for kids and best for the community, despite the kind of the landscape, the political and kind of environmental landscape that we live in, right?
Yeah.
And then there are some things within the education system that are relatively sacred that some districts will take on. And Michelle, we know of a district in the state that started with their elementary report cards. It's an elementary district. And they just said, we don't think our report cards are reflective of these human skills that are reflected in our graduate profile. So we're going to change our report card. And that was, a year plus 2-year process to roll that out and have the community conversations with students, with parents, with community members, with teachers that they needed to have in order to transform the report card. That was bold. It was a big first move that they took, but it's really paid off in terms of centering the human skills that are part of their graduate profile. But I also like what Dr. Moore said about elevating the portrait every possible moment you can at board meetings, at cabinet meetings, in superintendent newsletters that go out, staff meetings at school sites, meetings with principals, like all the different forums. If it's not at the center and kind of the basis for decision making, then it's never going to carry through.
Right.
Yeah. So a question I have is, how do you know that it's working? Right, you have the end in mind. You certainly have Roman. You've worked with many other districts, and certainly in Sierra Sands, you guys are testing it out and you're evaluating, you're measuring it, you're looking at it day to day. How do you know if it's working, if this end in mind is actually effective or not?
Well, I would define that as it just becomes part of who we are and not really what we do. So I would say that sounds like, feels like, looks like. Students are able to demonstrate those competencies and speak to them, even in transitional kindergarten, right? How do we learn to listen to our friends, right? Or share a few sentences that make sense and engage others. So again, I would say that it's owned by the whole system, and that our community can see when our students are in the system, whether they're in 7th and 8th grade at an event in the community, that it is fully operationalized, that it becomes who we are.
Well, go ahead, Roman.
I was going to add that, we look at survey data, surveys from local communities, surveys across the state, survey across the country. In general, the vast majority of kids are bored, they're disengaged, they don't see schooling as relevant for their future. Like, that's just data that we can point to all over the place, and we're seeing, constant reports coming through our feeds. And so, when you reorganize the education system around the competencies that young people themselves know that they will need for the future,
right,
they get more engaged, they get more interested, they're willing to play the game a little bit longer, perhaps. And sometimes kids do think of schooling as a game that they have to get through in order to get to the next step.
Yeah.
And some kids play hard. Some kids sit on the bench, and a lot leave the arena, and they're voting with their feet, and their families are voting with their feet. And, that's the kind of reality of our system now. So it's only in systems like Sierra Sands and others that are doing this work where youth are starting and families are starting to appreciate, okay, they're starting to listen to us. They're starting to understand what we really need for our future. And that means shifting instructional methodologies to more of a, learner-centered experiential learning kind of process, like project-based learning or civic learning or service learning or work-based learning. And then also doing, more relevant assessments, getting kids doing projects that have for real world projects, for a real world audience with real world benefit that gives them a sense of purpose. And, young people absolutely need that.
So many things you said, Roman, there around relevancy and purpose and just experiential project-based learning. All of that type of approach of instruction and learning is essential to build these skills. You don't build collaboration by reading a textbook and answering the questions at the back of the book. So, it's as we talk a lot about the knowledge age. We are leaving the knowledge age and we are in the intelligence age. And when we talk about the intelligence age, we center that on the human intelligences, these competencies that you've identified in your portrait of a graduate, and believe absolutely that the experience that kids have day to day has to reflect what we want those competencies to be. And as we evolve from the knowledge age, it's no longer about what you know and the amount of information you consume, but it's now about how do you use that information? How do you think differently? How do you apply, as you've identified, these portrait of a graduate skills? And I think, Dr. Savko, what you said, I want to go back to, you'll know that it's working when kids are aware of themselves as a communicator. They're aware and can see how they are an innovative problem solver. And I think that then they go home and their families and the community also see that. And I think that is just a really great metric for you all to continue to evaluate and make sure that you're making progress towards.
Well, I also wonder, I would say that, over time, and maybe you're not seeing those results yet in Sierra Sands, but as students understand that the system is about their needs, they get more engaged, they get more interested, and they show up. So attendance rates probably will go up. And if kids are engaged and there every day, then probably their test scores are going to go up too. And so I think we will start to see results that are aligned with the state's accountability system eventually, but it's not a straight line to get there. And that's the hard thing, is that it's definitely an arced curve to get there.
I love it. I love it. So I have a question for the three of you to kind of bring us all together. I want you to think that you've just finished giving your keynote to 2,000 other superintendents or district leaders or what have you, and you're giving your final one paragraph statement on the importance of whatever you want to talk about. What is your final message, your most impactful last thoughts towards this audience of people that are not only watching this podcast but live in the room, in the auditorium that you're in right now? Let's start with you, Dr. Moore, and then we'll go to Roman, and then we'll go to Dr. Savko. What is your final push?
Okay, so I would say just do it. The culmination of this conversation is just do it. Don't be afraid. Step out. Take that leap of faith, ask the community and engage with them. What do we collectively want for our students? And then let's go full steam ahead and achieve that, because that will then activate the community support that we always want and crave. It will activate our parents and students, because that's what their employers, their careers, they're going to need. And we'll be able to go full steam ahead to that end. And as Roman said, get everything else along the way.
Bold leadership, Dr. Moore.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. Love it.
And
Roman?
I would add the importance of doing it in community. This is isolating work. It's not, work that's been done for 20, 30, 40 years where we have a lot of research and studies and best practices. It's very uniquely contextual to a local community. Every community does it a little differently. And there's no silver bullet. And so to do it in community with many districts and to learn with and from one another is critically important, to support one another through the journey. And so that's why we have our community practice and we do study tours, but it's also why we're organizing our first summit, the Portrait of a Learner Ignite 2026 Summit, coming up in September, to pull all the leaders and educational leaders from all the communities that are doing this work together in one space over a couple of days to learn with and from one another. So we're excited about that summit.
I love that how you're creating the space for people to come together to learn from one another and from one another, because bold leadership can be very isolating, as you mentioned, and this need to build community and collective efficacy around something is really powerful. And so thank you, Roman.
Love it. Love it. Dr. Savko.
I would just add that if I were addressing others at the end of that type of scenario, to add to Dr. Moore's thinking, when you're bold, you're vulnerable and you're authentic. And so it really resonates with students and who are, again, in the system when we say we don't yet have all the answers, but we know, right, that we can create those answers and that vision together. And to me, that's where I see the power of this work. Right? Why do we want to do this work? And being vulnerable and less prescriptive, which we know education tends to be.
And in doing that, you are modeling the human skills that are on your portrait, which is the best kind of leadership.
That is exactly what I was going to say, Roman, the modeling of that. And also the modeling for your teachers around not knowing, not having all the answers, being willing to take a risk. Yeah. And think about that. If they bring that into their classroom, now you're creating those conditions that you want to see for students. So it just, the trajectory of what you're doing as leaders really is touching every learner.
Yeah. Spot on. I love it. I love it. Before we end off, I want to go back to something that Roman said and just ask for you to share so that our entire audience can be on the same page. How can districts get involved in the Scaling Student Success Community of Practice and Ignite September 27th to the 29th in San Jose? How can they get involved? How can they learn more and be there?
Well, yeah, the best one source is to go to our website at scalingstudentsuccess.org. And there's an events link on top of the page. You can go to learn more about the summit. You can, there's still time to submit proposals for those that want to submit breakout sessions until April 2nd. You can register, you can get a room. We're going to be at the Hayes Mansion in San Jose, which is this really beautiful, exclusive place. We'll have the run of the place. But the rooms, there aren't enough rooms for all of the participants who are going to be there, perhaps. And so it's important to book rooms early as well.
Gotcha. I love it. I love it. And also before we leave, really quick, Dr. Moore and Dr. Savko, how can our audience follow your journey and keep up with you? Stay up to date on the amazing things that you're doing, either in your district or personally. Do you have like a LinkedIn, a blog post, anything like that? This is your moment to share that. Let's start with you, Dr. Savko, and then we'll go to Dr. Moore.
Well, I would say we would need to communicate our progress, and we are starting with our staff and our students, and so we will update our website with our progress and our board. Dr. Moore?
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, and we are on LinkedIn. We have social media for the school district, and we have a great YouTube channel where we love to share the great things going on in our district. So all of the above, and I'm sure that'll be posted alongside with the podcast, but we're happy to share and learn and continue learning together in that community.
Love it. Love it. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Michelle, is there anything else I'm missing before we head out?
No, this has been a terrific conversation. It has been great learning from and alongside all of you. And we are just really excited about the work that Sierra Sands is doing and building that human intelligence, and couldn't be more happy to partner with you and do this work together. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys for hopping in here. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode. See ya.